Hi, and welcome to the Sports Outlet. For this edition, we're not going to be talking about professional sports, but we're going to be talking about here local college TCNJ sports. And I'm joined here today by none other than the two Signal sports editors who write a bunch of articles surrounding our sports teams every week and edit all the other ones for the beat writers. On my left, I have Mike Battista. On my right, Mackenzie Cutruzzula. And I'm really happy that they said yes to being on the show today. I'm really excited about this show. For the first part, I want to be talking about the fall sports teams: football, men's soccer, women's soccer. There's so many more: cross country, women's field hockey. So, Mackenzie, how have our sports teams been doing so far?
Our sports have been doing really well so far this semester. Field hockey has been off to a great start. Women's soccer has had a nice undefeated streak. They've had a couple ties in there, but a lot of wins. Cross country has been off and running. They've been done really well in all of their invitationals. They really focus on group running, and that's been a new tactic for them that they've really shined with.
Good, Mike. Feel free to chime in at any time. What do you think? How have the teams been doing on your end? Like, what do you think?
The teams this fall have been really good. We've had a nice mix of teams who've just been, doing good, second, third place, finishes. Then we have the teams that are just going undefeated. Like Mackenzie said, women's soccer, which I cover, is actually going. They are, I believe, 9-0-3 right now, which does count as undefeated. Also, women's field hockey has been having an undefeated season. It's just honestly our sports, especially women's sports, have been very good this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned women's soccer that you covered. Last year I covered women's field hockey when they won the Division III National Championship. And Coach Pfluger, it was a big deal this year, became the first coach to win 1,000 wins in two different sports, field hockey and lacrosse that she does. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Mackenzie, Mike, anyone?
You want to go first?
Sure. So Coach Pfluger, she's up to 1,000 wins. It's been really incredible because the team went undefeated last season, and then going into this season, they've continued to be undefeated. And Coach Pfluger is she's an alumni of here, so for her to get that 1,000th win, she's so well known nationally, and this just continues to really show her reputation off, why so many students want to come to this school to play field hockey. I think even when we conduct interviews with the players, you can really see that they not only want to do it for themselves, they also want to do it for her, which is just a great morale to have for the team.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible. I've talked to her, I've talked to some of the players too. It's incredible the respect they have for her and how she commands that locker room, that entire team. It's also great that she has a fall sport and a spring sport, that she's has greatness, perform greatness all year. I remember I saw her initial record before the start of last year. It's like 500 or like 400 and 100 losses, which is ridiculous, just for coaching for so long. And she won the championship as a player too, which is incredible to be successful at all times. Mike, any other big events this semester for the teams?
Well, of course, we have homecoming coming up, which is always a big deal. Even rain, snow, shine, everyone comes out for it. It's just a lot of fun. The teams play their hearts out, whether it be, I know last year we had football and women's soccer playing at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know, of course, football is playing, but I'm sure there's other events going on campus. And it's just the whole spectacle of the event, people in the parking lots celebrating, people, around campus being happy. It just has an effect on the players where they want to go out there and play, even harder than before. If they're giving 100%, they want to give it 110%, even more. And it's all around it's just an event that everyone should come see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was going to bring that up, right? And even as last year we didn't do too well against William Patterson in our football game, people still come out. People still want to watch. People still want to be part of the entire atmosphere. Mackenzie, what do you think about homecoming? What do you think about the future of the rest of the fall?
At least for football, I think they could definitely use a little bit of a morale boost. They didn't have as good of a start as maybe other seasons or maybe that they were hoping for, but I think homecoming will definitely be the push that they need to really succeed, just to get them over those kind of like those last second things that kind of haven't been together too much for them, but they'll kind of get their passing down, really get into the end zone where they need to be, and I think just having that student support, everyone getting ready for Montclair, I think that even has a little bit of a rivalry history there, so I think that'll be exactly what they need to just finally get that big W.
Right, and I like my roommate freshman year is the quarterback of the team right now, like Marchesano, and I've talked to him the entire atmosphere. They really have a big competition, big rivalry, as you said, with the fellow NJAC teams, Montclair, Rowan, Rutgers, Newark, all these teams who, Rutgers Camden, isn't it?
It's
Rutgers Camden, yeah.
Camden.
Rutgers Camden, right? Yeah. They have these big rivalries.
But we play Newark too.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I guess both of them, and they take it very seriously. I know. At least last year, I don't know this year if they talked about, they played Wisconsin Whitewater, the best team in the country, for Division III in basketball, baseball, and football. So that has a great program, and that's not as good for morale as you would want it to be. But when we get, homecoming games, conference games, we're more serious about it. And I think we can perform. Well,
actually, to go off that, with NJAC games in particular, in any sport, it's very important because, you play these teams, multiple times over the year.
Yeah.
You know these players, okay, so like in football, okay, this quarterback, I've seen him do that play last game and this game. He always goes to that guy. Or women's soccer, you see, okay, or any soccer, you see, okay, their forwards, they really like to hang back and wait. The NJAC games, they're most important for the conference, but they're also the games you might have a slight advantage in because you see more tape of them and you see more of them, every year.
Yeah, and you get to know the guys you're playing against and their tendencies more and more. I think, and that's why, and we get more more favorable crowds there because some of the people, you might know someone who goes to Montclair, you might know someone who goes to Rowan because they're local New Jersey people, and I think that's great for the team as well as for the fan base that we're trying to see. So that's great. Thank you guys. So that'll be it for our first segment. In the second segment, when we come back, I want to talk about what it's like to be a sports editor here, what it's like to be a beat writer, what you guys have to do behind the scenes to get the signal out, to make the college aware of sports. And I want to talk a little bit about winter and spring sports. I want to preview it a little bit. So stay with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Again, I'm joined here by Mackenzie, Cutruzzula, and Mike Battista, the two Signal sports editors. We're talking about TCNJ sports here on LTV. We talked about fall teams, so now I want to change it up a little bit. I want to talk about what it's like to be a sports editor, what the job means, what you guys do behind the scenes. Mike, could you elaborate, what's an everyday task for you?
So an everyday task is basically, for me, sports editor is different than any other job in the Signal because, when in things like, events on campus or music, you might have to say, oh, a concert just happened, I want the story in by, 2 days after. But with sports, what happens is that there are games where it's, okay, they're going to have 2 games a week, so you have to hold off on the story. You have to try and track people down at the last minute because maybe they have a game on Saturday. So it's basically, being a sports editor is, you have to be on top. You have to be on top of every one of your beat writers. Just make sure everyone's getting their stories in, make sure that they're putting all, and you have to make sure go through every story, make sure everything's the correct information, correct scores, correct name spellings. That's especially true if you're using someone from the other team. And then after that, it's just trying to basically piece the puzzle together and putting the stories in the right places so they fit nice.
Yeah. Mackenzie, what do you take away from it? What are your favorite parts? What are your not favorite parts? Least favorite parts?
So I really like that we work with beat writers. So basically, a beat writer is someone gets assigned to a specific sport, and they cover that sport from the first scrimmages all the way until that team is done playing, whether it be an NJAC final, a national conference, or unfortunately, if they don't make it to the postseason. But I think it's really great to watch writers evolve. a lot of times we'll get freshman writers who are really excited. They get to cover sport, and just seeing their writing evolve throughout the entire semester, watching them learn new rules, learn a little bit of different histories to certain sports, especially if it's something that maybe they didn't play in high school, but it's something they're really interested in. So I really just love, I love watching that writing style happen. Sometimes they have like a breakthrough and you just see it happen on the paper and you just get really excited because you get to know your writers a little bit more than other sections. And you also start to kind of get attached to a team without even realizing it. You start to kind of cheer on field hockey as they keep going, or soccer. You get really disappointed when you hear there's a loss in. So it's just, it's definitely a different kind of section, and I've really enjoyed working with it.
I definitely agree with you on so many points as a beat writer myself for, I guess this is my third semester now. It's cool seeing the changes that the editors make from what you wrote up to what comes out in the Signal. So you get to compare them and see the changes you have to make in the future, and that's part of the evolving writing style that you talked about, and that's great for me, not just as a sports writer but as a general writer, because it teaches me syntax rules, all these style rules, which are great, and definitely you get attached to a team, to a sport. Like I wrote field hockey again, and I didn't know anything about the sport, and now I do, and I remember cheering for them and being so happy that they won, because I just became attached to the coach, to the players, because it would be the same players scoring or assisting every game. And I would want them to do well. I'd see them on campus, and for me, it made me not just want the game, make me want to go to the game because I had to see it, but I really wanted to go because I cared about the team, and I thought that was something that being a writer made me want to do.
And to jump in, these are the same people you get quotes from every game. You talk to them. You dive into their mindset almost. At the end of each game. If you're doing your job right and you're asking like the right questions, you're really getting to know these players. And you want them to succeed, and part of you wants them to succeed, while the other part says, gotta do my job.
Yeah.
And it's just this really fun balance of, you know what? That's after what you told me last week. I want her to get. I'm glad she got that hat trick, or I'm glad they scored that touchdown.
Yeah, and I find myself writing like, unfortunately, the Lions didn't win, but I remember I can't write that because you're trying to
bias.
Right. Yeah. You're trying to put forward a non-biased, objective thing, but it's like, you see the scoreboard. It's like, we lost 3-2. In soccer to NJAC opponent, like to Montclair or whatever, like that upsets me a little bit, and I think that's really cool. You want it, and it builds not just you close to the team, like a spirit towards your school, which is great. We don't have that at TCNJ, a small Division III school. We don't have big tailgates. We don't have game day, but the closer we can be to our teams, the better. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a couple other things you guys do in the sports section. You guys cover professional sports with Around the Dorm, with Cheap Seats. Can you guys talk about that, Mackenzie?
Sure. So I'm the editor for Cheap Seats, and basically that's when a writer has a really strong opinion on a national topic that's happened. Those are really fun articles to edit because you get to kind of hear a writer's voice in it. We've covered everything from the Tom Brady scandal to most recently the high school football quarterback who died from a spleen injury during the game. And it's just it's nice to get a different perspective on sports. I think a lot of times I see so many of the same kind of stories coming out of Bleacher Report, coming out of Sports Center, and to kind of just get a younger perspective from someone who's not only a writer but also a colleague and a student. It's just nice to get that perspective every so often.
So that's Cheap Seats. What about Around the Dorm? I know it's from a copy of Around the Horn.
Yeah, so
ESPN, but
that's basically I've been handed that duty, and it's really fun. So basically, like you said, it's Around the Horn, just college's version, where there is a sort of a referee. He comes up with 3 questions, 3 broad questions. I personally like to vary it up every week, except you can be about baseball, hockey, football, or maybe boxing, whatever you want to talk about, as long as it's in sports. Then you get those questions out. You ask the judges questions. You ask 3 judges questions. They give you their responses. And the referee gives you their opinions, points, values. So what happens is everyone's opinion is put on the page. The referee analyzes each one, saying, you get 3 points for mentioning stats for this player. You get 1 point for having blind hope, something like that. which Mackenzie unfortunately got a few weeks back.
Yeah, I always get blind hope. I'll never win around the dorm, but I'm hoping one of these weeks.
Yeah, you just keep trying. Yeah. But honestly, it's a lot of fun. Everyone has a lot. It's kind of like a funner version, like a laid-back version of Cheap Seats, where you get a quick word in about your thing, and you say, oh, you know what, I like what you had to say, 3 points, and at the end, points are tallied, and the winner gets to put a quote in the paper, which, with my experience, it's usually an Anchorman quote.
Yeah, and that's usually either the first or the second thing I usually check every paper. I usually look at what I wrote, see the changes, how it looks, which is really cool because you just hand in like a Word document, and then it becomes like a live newspaper, and then I look at around the dorm, because I want to see if I won, all that stuff. Now, really quick, any previews for the winter and spring sports teams? Any team's going to do exceptionally well? What are we looking forward to?
Our swim team definitely always competes really well. I would also say look out for winter track and spring track. They've already started preparing, and they're always a team to be reckoned with.
Right. Mike, anything real quick?
I'm going to say that I'm really thinking that softball is going to do well this year, just because I deliver the newspapers on Wednesday, and I actually drive by the softball field a lot.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing them practice. They're putting up some pretty good. They're hitting well. They're fielding really well. I know it just sounds generic, but in a game like softball, if you have the mechanics down to a pat, you can go really far if you do the basic stuff really well. And honestly, I think that they can improve, maybe go farther in the NJAC this year, and maybe a bit farther in the NCAA.
Great, perfect. And that's it. I think that wraps up our show. Thanks so much for being on here, guys. Hope to see you again, maybe in the spring or sometime later this fall. So we'll see you next week on the Sports Outlet. In the meantime, if you're interested in joining LTV, please like us on Facebook or email us at ltv@tcnj.edu. For Lions Television, I'm here with Mike Battista, Mackenzie, Cutruzzula. I'm Otto Gomez. Have a good one, folks.